friends. This is Brenda from Love's Inner Voice. And today we are going to be talking about grief as a sacred journey. And I've been through a lot of grief recently, and a lot of people have in this time of chaos. And I have a wonderful guest, Angela Clement, who I will introduce later. But for right now, let's take our deep heart breathing. Breathe in light and love slowly. And as you breathe out anything that you're willing to get rid of right now, any energies that no longer serve you, any thoughts that you just want to put out there back into the universe for right now. Let's do that again. Breathe in light and love all the way down to your toes. And as you breathe out anything that you're willing to release right now. And let's do that 2 more times. Breath is such a gift for us when we do it consciously. For me, it allows me to pause. Blessed be. Thank you all for being here. And Angela Clement is a former school principal, a speaker, a writer, an energy healer, and the creator and host of Awaken Your Soul's Journey. I love that. Summit and podcast series on grief, where she has interviewed over 200 experts in grief. She is also the author of a new book called Awakening Through Grief, a spiritual journey of healing and transformation after loss. And as a co-author of the book, Good to the Last Drop with Eileen Weinberg. I love that title. A certified grief coach, she helps people in one-on-one and group settings to reconnect with their authentic selves after loss of any kind. Many people feel like they'll never get over the loss of a loved one. And she talks about moving from deep pain to a place of joy and purpose. So, Angela, how did your journey unfold for you, and what helped you take those first steps towards healing?
Well, thank you for inviting me and thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, it started with the loss of my husband, Blaine, in 2021. He was diagnosed with colon cancer in January and he passed away at the end of October. So before that, life was what I would call normal, that a lot of us think of it as normal. Um, and then when that happened, I had no idea where to turn, what to do, how I would get through it. It wasn't a sudden death, but yet it was such a shock. And so I decided to pursue energy healing because it was something that I'd been interested in for a long time. I had dabbled in it a little bit over the years and read about it. And my young son was actually healed by an energy healer. And so I was curious about what this was and how it worked. And I thought, having just retired, um, having this time where I had no idea where to go, I thought, why not start there? So I did. I took a course with a whole bunch of different modalities of energy healing. And I learned that through that process that there's something bigger out there than just what we're living in this 3D world. I believe that um, the soul goes on, and through my work, I was able to really feel Blaine's essence around me, helping me, guiding me, and making me what I will say what I am today, which is more of a um, person that's really interested in other people's stories and really wanting to get more information about how we move through this thing called grief. And I'm learning more and more about this as uh, part of a natural thing that we go through in life is letting go of things that we have to let go of, as we move through
Mhm.
life. Things like growing older, things like our kids
Mhm.
growing up and going to university. Um, all of these things are grief. And
Yes.
I think we don't really look hard at it until we have a big loss, like,
Yes.
a spouse. And then we are forced to look because of the pain and the emotion that comes up with that. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I started out. And I also, because I was in so much pain, I signed up with a grief coach. And she, along with the energy healers that I was working with, really helped guide me to where I am now.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Angela. Thank you for sharing that. And grief shows in many, many ways. And when I realized when my dad died that I had never grieved my mom because she died, and then for 5 years, being the eldest, I was present for him. So I
Yeah.
never really consciously grieved my mom. And when he died, all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks that I had never grieved my mom.
Yeah.
And to get through it, I had to create an an anagram for me.
Mm,
Um, and grateful, rebirthing internal energy flow. That is what grief is for me because I had so much gratitude for my parents and for all that they gave me for the number of years that they were there. But I also realized I needed to rebirth myself and see myself in a different way because
yeah.
I no longer had parents. I'm still an eldest, but that doesn't change. But
Mhm.
the inside of me needed to rebirth how I was seeing the world now.
Yeah.
And so in your book, Awakening Through Grief, you discuss grief in a way to release emotions and to create space for something new, something to fulfill your life again. How can people honor their grief while also moving towards something greater? Because we fear about letting go of the grief because we're letting go of the person and the
Yeah.
memories or whatever.
Yeah.
I would love for you to share about that.
Yeah, we often attach the grief to the person.
Yeah.
And we attach actually everything to the person, the things that they had when they were here. We often struggle to let go of their clothing or
Yeah.
jewelry or things like that. And so part of it is because they're gone, we're reaching out and trying to grasp a piece of them to hold on to. And that's okay. But what I've come to understand is that who they really are is in spirit. And if we can reach out to that aspect of them, there is still a relationship and a connection that goes on. Um, and it's difficult at first because we've had this personal connection and we miss that not only, energetically, spiritually, but our brain also has these neural pathways that have been built for, well, for me, we were married 35 years. So if you think about that, how many days we spent together and the routines that we went through on a regular basis had built some really deep pathways in my brain. And so it takes time to relearn how to live without that. And so there's a whole bunch of things going on in that grief process. And it gets very complicated and it's very different for every person. And so I like to think of it as uh, not something that's there to avoid or push away, but something to embrace because it's actually embracing it is how we heal. And a lot of it is emotion, and they're really strong emotions. And so um, that's kind of the first thing I learned is that way of processing emotions. And I use several tools to do that over the course of this time. And those became lifelong tools, not just for grief, but for life in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, another thing that you really talk about in Awakening Through Grief, your beautiful book, is the difference between grief and mourning.
Mm.
Because a lot of us talk about, oh, I'm mourning that person. Oh, I'm still feeling really heavy in mourning, and how expressions of grief beyond that can give us rituals and writing and look at creating how we can move forward toward healing. So, if you could give us a little hint about the difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, mourning is the outward expression of our grief. And so it's often seen, when we're crying, or we can express our grief in a lot of different ways, actually. Sometimes people will paint or draw or write and express that grief. We have services where we express, how much we love them. And that's a form of mourning as well. That outward expression is important, really important. It is a big part of the grieving process. But the grieving process itself happens on the inside, and it's something that unfolds with time. And it's uh, one of those things that we associate with sadness and sorrow and really deep pain. And that's part of it, but it's certainly not all of it. And I think that's where we get kind of mixed up is that grief is a lot more than that. It's really a process of awakening, is what I've found, to find out who you really are now
Yeah,
and who you want to continue to be in this world. And that's part of the process that maybe as a culture we don't talk about.
right.
Um, and I think it's an important part, as important as the mourning process.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because that truly is a definite definition for me of the rebirthing process that
Mm,
I have the gift to go through. Um, and grief lasts a lifetime, you say.
mhm.
And that's scary to think about. Can you reframe it? And I have trouble with beliefs because a lot of my beliefs were from childhood. And in the
Yeah,
middle of that word is lie. And so sometimes I'm telling myself lies about what's really true
yeah.
and about my grieving. And I have to do it this way. I have these shoulds that I have to do. And
Mhm.
that's doesn't work for me. And I don't think it works for a lot of us. So grief lasts a lifetime. Can you speak more about that? Because
Yeah,
I happen
so
to believe that, but
yeah, it's something that people told me a lot when I first started researching. That was written in a lot of books and there's a lot of things. A lot of people who had experience with grief said, you will just learn to carry it and you will get used to it. And it, those kinds of things were really discouraging for me. I felt like I was going to be in this pain forever.
yeah,
Um, and so I don't see grief as something that we have to do forever. However, the grieving process is there in our lives to help us as we move through the different stages of our lives, and we
yes,
have to let go of the past. And
yeah,
so, grief in that way is with us, but not as a negative, as a positive.
no,
It's helping
right,
us move through all these changes. But the actual mourning and the pain and the emotion, that we can let go. And we don't have to keep that. We can keep the love and the memories, and we can look back on those fondly with gratitude and
Mhm.
build meaning around it. And there's hope and inspiration and curiosity for the future that starts to happen as you heal. So it's it's not the way you think it is. I guess is
Right.
what I'm saying. Grief is not forever. And I love the quote that my grief coach had. This was how I found her. She said, "Some say you will grieve for a lifetime. I choose otherwise. I choose the path from hurt to hope to healing every day." And that quote is really what I feel grief is about. It's really about moving through the process and choosing what you want next. And yeah, it's more about us and what we choose than you think.
And I love that. That's so true because even little things, little changes in our life can bring up a little bit of grief. And
Yes.
it's good if we acknowledge that because we don't want to press it down because eventually it's going to explode.
Yeah,
At least that's been my experience.
absolutely.
So you mentioned losing your husband, Blaine, and you know, I honor your sharing that. What do you hope our listeners will take away from your journey and apply to their own lives as they face grief and loss of any kind?
Yeah, I hope that people can look at grief in a different way, have a new perspective on it, and not as something to be feared or to be um, I would think some people have a really negative connotation that goes with grief. It really is a beautiful process. And I guess my biggest thing is that I want people to have hope that there are brighter days coming and that it does get lighter. We do have to work at it. It's not something where you can just wait for time to heal. It's really not like that. We really have to examine ourselves and we have to give it the time and the space it deserves so that we can move through it and heal. But it's absolutely doable. And I just don't want anyone to think that now they need to grieve forever in that way. Um, I think, there's a lot of growth that can take place. And so I just want people to know that there is hope.
And I love that because hope is so important. One of the things that really came to me since we decided to call this show Grief as a Sacred Journey, you've talked about emotional healing. And grief is an emotion. And those are gifts from the divine or the universe, whatever people want to call that loving energy. So it's also an emotion to learn from. And you mentioned that two or three times throughout this time together. And it really isn't a negative process unless we put that energy on it.
Yeah.
And that is a choice too. And that's one of the reasons why I love to do the deep breathing because it encourages me to pause and really look at, oh, what am I really feeling? And do I want to continue doing that? Or what can I learn from that?
Hmm.
So, what other things would you like to share that you learned through your test and let people know how they can contact you? Because I know that you now are a wonderful grief coach.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, the easiest way to find me is at my website, healingenergy.world. And everything
Mm,
is there, the book, the podcast, the blog posts, newspaper articles. I have a grief support group. I do healing sessions. My partner and I do something called Healing Hearts, which is uh,
beautiful.
I I do the oracle card readings and energy healing, and he pulls messages from your loved ones. And so it's a unique combination, but quite a powerful one in that. And so there's lots there to explore, lots of resources. So healingenergy.world.
That's really beautiful. You mentioned an oracle card. Did you happen to draw one for today?
I didn't, but I could do one quick if you like.
Yeah, for our time together. Why not?
Absolutely. Let's just pull one and see what the message is here. And we
I
do
love
this on
oracle
a,
cards.
yeah, me too. They've actually got me through a lot.
Yeah.
It says another chance to be.
Wow.
How beautiful is that? So
How beautiful is
reclaiming
that?
second chances, rebirth, emotional healing, beautiful message. They never disappoint me.
Oh, I know. And it's always, they're always right on with whatever is showing up in the moment.
Yes.
It's just magical for me to draw a card and go, oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I needed to hear. And you shared that you have another book that you did with another author. Can you speak a little bit about that book too?
Yeah, Irene Weinberg is another widow. She has a podcast as well, and she asked me to co-create this book with her and some other authors. And basically, it's about life in your third chapter and what you can make of it at that point. And there is a lot of inspiring stories in that one. If people are interested, that one also is on my website that you can order.
So it's an anthology of
Yes,
different stories.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's lovely. When you said that about widowhood, I'm not a widow. I am a divorcee from the
Mm,
time my daughter was 5. So basically, my whole life. And I realized that I had some of the loss that widows have
yeah,
because I no longer have a relationship at all with my daughter's dad.
yeah,
I mean, he's
yeah.
still alive, but I have no communication with him, no relationship with him. So, in essence, he's dead to me
Hmm.
by his
Yeah,
choice.
yeah,
And I all of a sudden realized that we go through a lot of the same grief.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's just that we didn't have to bury their body,
Hmm.
which can be very traumatic for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was a really interesting aha for me
Yeah, there's a
just
lot of
now.
grief in that, like a
Yeah.
ton of it. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's interesting the words that we use. I don't happen to like the word divorcee. When I'm
Mm.
asked, was I ever married or divorced, I just put single because I've been single for 55 years or something like
Yeah.
that, more than half my life. So, you know, any other key points or tools or gifts or ahas you would like to share with the audience before we close?
Yeah, I think I would just like to share that there are resources in my book that you can access. There are things that I used as I went along the way and that were really helpful to me. I would mention specifically Donna Eden and her energy medicine, and that's very accessible on YouTube. If you just look up Donna Eden, you can find energy exercises that are really practical for pretty much anything. And so I would leave that with people. That's one of the resources I share in the book, and there's so many other ones.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's Donna, Eden,
Yes,
Eden.
yes,
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, it's been such a blessing to have you here,
yes, you
Angela.
too. Thank you, Brenda. Yeah,
Let's don't forget to go to say your website one more time, please.
Healingenergy.world.
Wonderful. Working on healing the world one person at a time, because that's the best way we can do it.
Thank
I've
you.
found
Yes. Yeah.
I need to start with myself.
Hmm.
And then I can shine energy of light and love out into the world one day at a time. Thank you
Beautiful.
all for being here. Let's take a big, good grounding breath in through the heart, down into the lungs, all the way down to the feet. Let it out slowly and release anything that you would like. Breathe in light and love. Breathe out. We want you to be sure that you go back into your day grounded and centered. Blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Angela. It was such a treasure and such a gift.